Executive Director of Jazz Tech, Juveniles Active in Science and Technology Development Services, a not-for-profit organization developed in 1998 to promote environmental justice, encourage sustainable design, and to promote public health in urban communities. In 2002, Jazz Tech applied for and received a U.S. Environmental Protection Agency grant under the Clean Water Act to establish Overbrook Environmental Education Center, a community-based center dedicated to preserving our built and natural environments. Under Mr. Shabazz's direction, the OEEC completed a targeted brownfields assessments and remediated environmental hazards from the brownfield site in West Philadelphia. Please welcome Mr. Shabazz.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be back. I remember I was here last May, and my wife reminded me, she said it was Mother's Day, and I had to hurry up and get her somewhere. She said, fortunately, it's not Mother's Day this time. But since then, we've had a chance to make some really good friends, and we really appreciate Bob Bearding for bringing us back and participating in a great deal of our work at the center. Hugh Taft Morales has been really active in our programming and very supportive. Christian Hayden, Betsy makes it so nice for us. She calls and communicates and gets everything straight. So thank you, Betsy. We really appreciate that. And Eric Clausen, he's been a very good help for us too in terms of coordinating activities and events. So that's been very nice. I actually was looking forward to being here today. So thank you very much for creating such a warm environment that makes it welcoming. Dan, when he was talking earlier, we realized something, that both our sons are at Central High School. And his Manny is in class 281, and my son is in 280. So today's talk, we had this theme that we've been sort of exploring lately, and it's called the social architecture for resilient and sustainable communities. Social architecture for resilient and sustainable communities. And the reason why we began talking about social architecture is purely because we realize that there's a portion of our society who these issues of environmentalism, sustainability, conservation are not their primary priority. As a result, it's something that is not something that's mainly in their purview every day. When you start looking at Philadelphia's demographics, we have 26.6% poverty. And when you have that kind of deep poverty, there's areas, our catchment area around the Overbrook Center, we're in zip code 19151. We also service zip codes 131 and 39, mostly West Philadelphia. And we have some pockets of West Philadelphia that's deep poverty, like the Mantua area, for example. It's a trauma zone. It's really deep poverty, one of the poorest counties in the United States. So the center has taken on a model, and we ask ourselves a very pertinent question. What's the issues that's going to impact people in our community, particularly the most vulnerable amongst us? But then we have a second question we always try to answer. Why should they care? Why should someone who's worried about food inequities, why should someone who is worried about crime for their child, safe neighborhoods, why should they care about these environmental issues? But most importantly, our third question is, what can we do about it? So the social architecture for sustainable and resilient communities is our ability to create a construct by which people will care about the concerns that will ultimately affect not only their lives, but the lives of their families and their communities. Now we know in Philadelphia, in terms of climate changes, we realize that we have an environment that's going to get hotter and wetter. Hotter and wetter. That's the trajectory of our climate change. And we know that over the last 10 years, we've had the hottest weather and the rainiest weather on record. And so we know that there are going to be changes to how our biology functions, our urban biology. We know that there's going to be changes to our health. There are going to be conditions that people will have to respond to because of the excessive heat. We consider a heat wave now, 3 days over 90 degrees. Imagine 7 days over 90 degrees, or 12 days over 90 degrees. What does that impact have on our quality of life, on our health? But most importantly, how would it impact the most vulnerable amongst us? People who already have health disparities, people who already have duress, people who already have the highest levels of asthma, obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. We know that heat has a direct impact on those conditions. We know that water that's not managed can produce bacteria and funguses, right? Mold that can cause duress for respiratory. So again, we know what these conditions are. And interestingly enough, the Philadelphia Health Department produced a report of the health of the city in 2017. We can almost identify by the zip code where these disparities will take place. So over the last 4 years, the Overbrook Environmental Education Center, we've been focusing in on this concept of environmental justice. Environmental justice. And what we've been doing with our young people is talking about the environmental conditions of our city. And we use the model that I aforementioned. How do we talk about the issues? How do we talk about what kinds of things we can do to make people concerned? And what you can do about it. And when I finish talking today, there's a video that our young people put together. It's called Environmental Just Us. Yes. And these were high school students from all throughout the city, put this wonderful video together, and I hope you like it because I want to go back and tell them that people like it rather than you. I hope you like it. But that's sort of the basis of what I want to share with you today, the reminder of how we have to become the ligament that holds the muscle to the bone. We have to become the connector. We have to begin to find ways to connect people to the issues despite what they're going through, despite their conditions in their life, despite the fact that they may worry about where food is coming to. I had no idea about 4 years ago. I teach at Penn State, and I work with the offices that do a lot of work in urban communities. And, you know, I didn't realize how deeply people rely upon food services in order to eat. That there's 1 out of every 4 people in our city who wouldn't eat unless there was some kind of food bank or some kind of assistance for food. And it's an amazing thing that when you think about poverty, you think about some war-torn country, you don't think about Philadelphia. But we're one of the poorest, largest counties in the United States. And so I want to reinvigorate our interest in dealing with and treating with kindness and care and love the people that we see every day. Because what has happened is that they become hidden in plain sight. So let me talk a little bit about what we're doing at the center that I really want to think of as a response to this kind of construct. We're creating this project called a pharmacy. About 2.5 years ago, we received an EPA grant that enabled us to look at the environmental impacts on public health in our West Philadelphia community. And we asked that we have a dispensation to look at food also, because it was land management, domestic toxins, and water quality as the primary connectors to the EPA. But doesn't food come out of the ground? Mm-hmm. And they said yes. I said, okay, good. We can make a connection, because you have to make connections to those agencies in order for them to allow you to do work. under their purview. And so when we're looking at food inequities, we started looking at the quality of soil, the quality of land. We began partnering with the CEAT, the Center for Excellence in Environmental Toxicology at Penn. We started doing soil samples in West Philadelphia, and we found out that there was large levels of lead exposures, areas where, by definition, you really don't even want to be around it. When you have over 400 parts per million, there were areas where there was 1,600 parts per million of lead in soil. In those same areas, we found that there was elevated blood lead level in children. So we know where these problems are. So once I started seeing the epidemiology of what was going on in our areas of concern, we said we need to come up with a solution. We can't keep just identifying these problems. We need to come up with a solution. And our solution was to, one, educate people on what these impacts look like and how you can make a difference. And how you can make a difference in a way that doesn't cost you much. And where did I get this idea from? My dear old mother. She's 94 years old, and she passed along in December of last year. But I remember being in North Philadelphia when we had lead gasoline in cars. There was a whole lot of lead all over the place. And as children, we played in the dirt, we played marbles, we played tops, we rolled around and wrestled in the streets. And our elevated blood lead levels were higher than some of the children who were there today. But then I started thinking, what did my mother and the rest of the mothers on the block and the rest of the fathers on the block used to do? They used to make sure that you took your shoes off before you wiped your feet before you came in the house. I could hear my mother's voice in my head now, boy, don't you bring your nasty shoes in my house. You better wash your hands before you come into my kitchen. And I remember very vividly how she would wash down the window ledges so that the heights where the children are, you put your hands up on those ledges, you're not putting that lead dust in your mouth. And people used to scrub, we had marble steps. People used to scrub the steps every Sunday and every Friday, every Saturday. They used to wash the pavements down and hose it down. That there was a social connection to their environmental protection. And it dawned on me that my mother was my first environmentalist. She was the one that gave me the simple solutions that we can share today. Because when we talk about sustainable design and sustainable practices, there are three elements that are connected to sustainability. One is that it should endure over time. Two, it's a practice that will improve the conditions at hand. And three, it's accessible and attainable. So when we talk about good sustainable practices, it's accessible, it endures over time, and improves the conditions that we're in. So they have sustainable practices. Because we're doing trainings now, all throughout the city. And we can do it here if you guys like. We could do a talk on how to protect yourself from lead exposure. Now, we typically think of that as an issue that we want to deal with young children, because when they have, it's a neurotoxin, so when you have the child's growing minds, you don't want them exposed to these neurotoxins before they get to the age of 6. But that's when you have the greatest formulation in your brain structure. But what we're finding now is that lead will reside in the bones of mature people. And then as you mature, it'll leachate. We may wonder why we can't remember where the keys are. I don't know, it could be lead. Who knows? But the reality is that we don't want to do any greater harm that's preventable, correct? Would you agree? And so we want to look at these things as all part of a general construct of how we can keep ourselves safe. We know that pollution and poison is in the dose. You know, it's one of the first lessons I learned in graduate school. Professors used to always say, poison is in the dose. So anything can poison you if you get the wrong dose of it, right? So what we want to do is to mitigate exposure and mitigate ourselves to toxins and mitigate our exposure to domestic conditions, mitigate ourselves to excessive medicines. In this world where we can go online and order just about anything, we need to be able to have a social construct for how we manage those things that we accumulate. started in this business over 30 plus years ago, we were focusing in on industries and how much waste that they emit into the waters of our region, and how much they emit into the air, and what they put on our soil, what did they dump in the land. And we called that a source point pollution. We knew where that source of pollution was coming from. Now we have this non-source point pollution, where I may be able to go online and see something and say, hey, this would be great for polishing the brass of my railing. And then I get it, and it doesn't work. So then I have a quart of this stuff. And what do I do with it? Do I pour it down the toilet and ruin our water quality? Do I dump it on the grass and ruin our land, our soil? Do I just leave it out and it evaporates and transpirates into the atmosphere? What do I do with it? So we have a rule that says you really get a chance to see the impact of the thing when you measure that action by the multitudes. So it's not about what I do, but it's what I do, Nick does, what Stan does, what Bob does, what everyone does. The cumulative effect. The cumulative effect of that behavior is telling you what that behavior represents. So therefore, we want to be able to mitigate that cumulative effect. We want to be clearer about how we dispose of things. We want to be clearer about where we put our waste. Again, changing that Bob Seger song. Not about they, about we. What do we do? How can we make a difference? That's the method that we approach at the Overbrook Center. That's the message that we're sharing with all of our friends and our partners throughout this region. How can we make a difference? We're developing a center now with the help of a lot of good people. We're approaching we're right on the precipice of developing a center that's going to be dedicated to the actual practices of all of these environmental issues and its impact on public health. Because we rarely see the connection. The public health people deal with public health, the environmental people deal with the environment, but we rarely see them come together. But people can tell you what the true impacts are. Those are the things that are necessary. That's part of our social architecture. It needs to become part of our language, how we talk to each other and talk about these matters, and not just be so upset with the big utility and the big industry and the big industrialists, but reduce back down to our common behaviors, because our non-source point pollution is as devastating as our point source pollution that's coming from those industries. What we do, what we dump down the catch basins in our streets, is as devastating as anything that an industrialist is pumping out of his smokestacks. When I used to work for the Philadelphia Water Department many years ago, we found that if you dump a quart of motor oil down the stormwater catch basin, it will have the cumulative impact of contaminating 10,000 gallons of potable water. Just that simple act of unawareness around your cumulative impact on people is devastating to our environment. Because we drink that water, right? We drink that water. One of the things that's beautiful and I always love about this region is that we have so much water that can accommodate our needs. We have the Delaware River watershed, and we have the Schuylkill River watersheds. But very often we disconnect our behavior and our conduct from the water quality thereof. When I had the pleasure of working for the Philadelphia Water Department, I had a chance to see that entire process. From the wastewater process, I worked at the Northeast Water Pollution Control Plant. It takes in 210 million gallons of wastewater every day, all of it. Then I worked at the Southeast plant. It takes in another 185 million gallons. Your waste probably goes to Southeast from here. So the guys at the plant make sure. And then you have the Southwest plant, which takes in another 190 to 200 million gallons. It's almost 500 million gallons all the time, every day, that people are quietly taking care of. And they're processing it so that we can put that clean water back into our Delaware and Schuylkill rivers. Because from that Schuylkill River, we drink it. And there's a phrase that some of us environmental folks use. We say we drink the rivers. We drink the rivers. So our goal is to make sure that we do what we can to create a language, to realize that getting people involved and engaged is an important part of keeping our environment healthy and vibrant. I know that you guys are in many ways working towards that cause and that effort. And we're working in that cause and that effort too. We like to see ourselves as good supporters and good collaborators around helping to make a very vibrant and healthy and sustainable community here in the city of Philadelphia. We have this wonderful film that I want to show you, and then we can talk a little bit more about what our students were able to do. As Dan begins to cue it up, when we started looking at epidemiology of health problems around that's connected to the environment, something dawned on us. And I think it was helped by some music that was being played at the center, Nina Simone. And she was talking about, and freedom is mine. So, as if it was an epiphany, we told our young people, we want you to get beyond just this concept of environmental justice so that you can claim environmental freedom. That no one of us, amongst us, should ever have to worry about whether the air is clean enough for us to go out and embrace it, or the water is clean enough for us to drink. And so, this video, Environmental Just Us, is our students' response to their concerns around environmental freedom. So, Dan's got to start, so I'm getting out of the way.